Hey there, RosterWatch Nation. It's your friendly neighborhood Trashman. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the guys in the AFC who I think are going to take a step back this season, either due to additions that were made in the draft or in free agency. So let's go ahead and get started. First off with Damian Williams of the Chiefs. Damian Williams hasn't handled more than 111 carries or 30 catches at any point in his 6-year career. So there's really no reason to think he will moving forward, especially now that Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been added to the backfield. Andy Reid thinks Helaire is like another Brian Westbrook. So obviously he thinks he's a better prospect than Damian Williams is. I think Williams will still have value for sure, but if you were depending on him to be RB1 this season, don't count on it. After him, we have Chris Conley of the Jaguars, wide receiver. And, maybe you think that Conley wasn't somebody you were paying attention to in fantasy anyway, but if you actually look at his numbers, they weren't bad. He had almost 800 yards in 2019, and it seems like he was moving up in the pecking order there in Jacksonville, up close to DJ Chark, but they have added Laviska Shenault, wide receiver, to that wide receiving core, and Colin Johnson. And I think with those two, especially Shenault, who can do a lot of the same things that Conley can do, except he's a bit more dynamic, a bit more of a physical player than Conley, I think that kind of negates any prospects of him ascending in the offense this season. After him, we have Tyrell Williams of the Raiders. And he was kind of the du jour number one receiver there in, now Las Vegas. But with the addition of Henry Ruggs in the draft, Ruggs is taking over as the de facto number one receiver. And I don't know that Derek Carr can handle more than one of those. And so Tyrell Williams, I think, takes a step back this season, at least in the pecking order. I don't know, maybe he gets more comfortable there. He played well as a second fiddle for the Chargers. Maybe he's more comfortable doing that, and maybe actually, maybe he has a decent season this year. But it's going to be Ruggs, who is really the only Raider I'm looking to as far as the receivers go in fantasy, because they also added Nelson Aguilar, so I think he's going to bite into some of Hunter Renfro's targets. So I don't really like any of those guys except for Ruggs. After him, we have Justin Jackson of the Chargers, who a lot of people thought would be the 1B to Austin Eckler's 1A in the backfield there. But the Chargers added Joshua Kelly to the mix, and I think he's actually kind of redundant to Jackson. I think they have similar player profiles, but I think they're going to eat into each other's carries. So I'm probably not going to bother with either of those guys in fantasy unless Austin Eckler gets hurt. After him, we have James Washington of the Steelers, a guy who was actually a Biletnikoff winner, if I'm thinking correctly, coming into his rookie year. But it's not his rookie year anymore, and he's had some chances to shine there in Pittsburgh. And he's had some pretty decent games, but he is nowhere near the athletic specimen that Chase Claypool is. He's a size, speed freak. I think he ran a 4.42 40. And he had like a 41-inch vertical, if I'm thinking correctly. He's the kind of guy you can just throw it up to and he'll go up and get it. So I think Washington is the odd man out there with Deontay Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster in addition to Claypool there. After him, we have Mark Ingram, running back for the Ravens. Last season, pretty decent season for Ingram. Over 1,000 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns on the season. But they did add J.K. Dobbins to the mix. And the team has already said that they view him as a 3-down back, and he's more of a bully than Ingram is. The Ravens do run the ball more than any other team in the league, maybe almost twice as much as any other team in the league. So I think Ingram will still get his action. But I don't know that he's going to get the 10 touchdowns that he did last season, and I don't know that he's going to flirt with 1,000 yards. In any case, I wouldn't bank on him being your running back one in fantasy this season, or a running back run rather. After him, we have John Brown of the Bills, over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns last season. But now that the Bills have added Stephon Diggs to that mix, all bets are off for Brown having a season like that this year. I think Diggs, he can open up the field just like Brown can, but he's a more physical receiver than Brown is. So I see them both having decent seasons with Josh Allen, as he's got a cannon for an arm, and I think the Bills are improving as a team. But I don't think John Brown will be as consistent as he was last season. After him, we have Tyler Boyd of the Bengals, over 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2019. A few things change about his situation this year. First off, it's Joe Burrow, rookie, who's going to be under center. And we're optimistic about Burrow. A lot of people are, but he really did only have one amazing season in college. And I think he's going to have some growing pains this season. So that's going to change things up for Boyd a little bit, I believe. And then there's the addition of T. Higgins to the wide receiving core. John Ross was hurt for the majority of the season, or a lot of the season last year, as was A.J. Green, who missed almost the entirety of the season. A.J. Green is healthy now, and if he does continue to stay healthy, he's going to eat into Boyd's targets as well as Higgins. So I just don't see Boyd having the kind of year that he did in 2019 this year. After him, we have Austin Hooper, now of the Cleveland Browns. Last season as a Falcon, he had 787 yards and 6 touchdowns. One of the main reasons I don't see him have another season like that is because David Njoku is going to be playing alongside him in Cleveland. And I think Njoku, he hasn't quite fulfilled his, what people thought they were going to get out of him when he came into the league. But he's still a pretty decent tight end, and I think he's still going to get his looks. Kevin Stefanski, who's coaching there now from Minnesota, he likes 2 tight ends in the mix. Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith had almost equal usage last season. So I think Njoku and Hooper are going to eat into each other's targets this season. I think they'll both be pretty decent, but I don't see Hooper being a tight end 1 this year. After him, we have philliplindsay of the Broncos. He's coming off of 2,000-yard plus seasons, averaging 8 touchdowns a season. And we now know that Melvin Gordon is the guy in the backfield in Denver now. And I would say philliplindsay would be a good complementary back to Gordon, but philliplindsay really isn't a third down type back. He's a between the tackles runner. He's not really a receiving back. At least he hasn't been used that way thus far. Maybe they changed the way they use him, and that kind of mitigates the loss in touches that he's going to see with Melvin Gordon there. But I would not count on Lindsay having another 1,000-yard season or 8 touchdowns this year. After him, we have Marlon Mack of the Indianapolis Colts. Last season, he had over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. And the Colts have now added who we think at RosterWatch was the best back in the draft, or most complete back in the draft, and that was Jonathan Taylor, who can do all of the things that Marlon Mack can do, except better. So I feel they said it's going to be a 1-2 punch or a 1-1 punch, rather, and maybe that is the case in the early goings on of the season, but I see Taylor taking over the backfield there. I don't see 1,000 yards or 8 touchdowns from Mack this year. And then last but not least, we have Kenny Stills for the Texans. Kenny Stills actually had a decent year last year, over 560 yards and 4 touchdowns as the Texans, I guess, sometimes number 2, oftentimes number 3 receiver there. But now with the addition of Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb in the mix and Will Fuller running as the number 1 there, or a 1A, I guess Cooks being a 1B, or you could switch it around. It doesn't really matter. I just think with Fuller, Cooks, and Cobb there, I think that puts Stills off to the side. I don't think he's going to be the kind of guy that you could throw in there in in daily leagues on at least a semi-weekly basis and get those kind of streaky big games for you. I don't see that happening for Stills this season. Anyway, those are some of the main guys in the AFC who I think are going to take a step back this year because of additions to their offenses. Next up, in the next installment, I'm going to be talking about some of the same guys who are going to be, well, not the same guys, but guys who are also going to be seeing declines in their fantasy production this year for the NFC. Anyway, until next time, on behalf of RosterWatch.com, this is the Trashman. Give us a follow. Give us a comment in the comment section. Tell us how much you love us or hate us, if that's got to be what it is. Anything you can say it. And if it's a question, we'll respond to it. Someone will respond to it. Maybe the robot genius, maybe our robot overlords who are advising that we get comments in the first place. Anyway, until next time, Roster Watch Nation, be ready.